I am innocent, and I want a divorce because my husband cannot fulfill his marital duties, Euphemia Gray told the court. The people on trial gasped. In the 19th century, any divorce was tantamount to shame. As a result, many women tolerated domestic violence and various forms of humiliation to avoid being known as a divorced wife. With her doll-like appearance, smooth skin, large eyes, and full lips, Euphemia was a man's dream. But not her husband. Euphemia married in 1848, but this marriage was doomed to misfortune from the beginning. John Ruskin was a famous Victorian literary critic. Even Queen Victoria knew him. John became famous for his bold statements and his detachment from the real world. He met the young Euphemia when she was only 12 years old. John was 21 years old at the time. He liked this girl who had not yet reached puberty. He wrote her a beautiful fairy tale called The King of the Golden River. Victorian mores were different from today's, so it was normal for Euphemia's parents to wait until their daughter was older before giving her consent to marry. John waited 7 years. In 1848, when Euphemia was 19, the young people were married. The reasons for John's strange behavior are not known for certain. Some said that the talented writer was embarrassed by the nature of a woman who seemed unpleasant to him. There were rumors that Euphemia did not shave. Waxing was not talked about in the Victorian era, nor was menstruation. John Ruskin tried to avoid such racy topics. Other contemporaries who have attempted to analyze the reasons for the failure of the marriage have suggested that John was extremely morose. He feared that Euphemia and her not particularly wealthy family were only after Ruskin's money. Yes, he was wealthier than Euphemia's parents, but not so much that there was a social gulf between them. These assumptions were made by Victorian men who still considered women beneath them. Personally, it seems to me that they were trying in every way to favor and justify John Ruskin by blaming the woman for the failure of the marriage. Be that as it may, Euphemia remained innocent in her first marriage. She was a virgin. Euphemia Gray said, "Before I was married, I was never told what the duties of spouses were to each other, and I knew negligibly little about the relationship of these most intimate of people." John had a world of his own. He was dreamy and withdrawn and not very sociable. He was the exact opposite of Effie, who was flirtatious and playful. At first, the couple deferred the consummation of their marriage for 5 years at John's request. Ruskin cited various excuses. He allegedly needed time to focus on his studies, but John was reported to be cruel to Effie and distrustful of her. He created an image of a perfect woman that he willingly believed until the wedding day. Effie revealed that she had known the real reason for the delay. John explained that he had hated children, had religious motivations, and wanted to maintain her beauty. This year, he finally told her the truth. The woman he had envisioned was significantly different from who he saw in her, and it was his dislike of her from the start of the relationship that prevented him from making her his wife. As John himself said to his lawyer during the divorce proceedings, "It may seem unusual that I did not pursue a woman who is considered so attractive by most people. However, although her appearance is beautiful, her character was not formed for me to feel affection and desire for her. On the contrary, certain aspects of her personality completely prevented this from happening." It really does seem very unusual. At the time, there were numerous rumors that John Ruskin preferred watching women only in the paintings of famous artists. Typically, these artists idealize women, making them resemble goddesses. In these paintings, there is little cellulite and no natural body hair. While still married to Ruskin, Effie modeled for the artist John Everett Millais. There was a spark of attraction between them. During a medical examination, Effie demonstrated her innocence, which helped annul her marriage to Ruskin. In 1854, their marriage was declared invalid, and a year later, Effie and Millet were wed. They had 8 children and lived happily together. However, during the Victorian era, divorce was discouraged, so Effie did not have the same social freedom as she did during her marriage to Ruskin. For example, Effie Millais could not attend events where Queen Victoria was expected to be present, but a little later, Victoria relented and allowed Effie to attend some events as well. The Queen showed favor for Millais, elevating him to baronet status. Effie became known as Lady Effie. She died at age 69 after a long and eventful life next to her beloved second husband. And what about Ruskin? He studied art, traveled, wrote, and sometimes criticized the work of John Millais. One day, Ruskin wanted to marry a second time. The woman he chose was Rose Latouche. At the time, when Rose was just 10 years old, Ruskin was 39 and already liked her in a way that he decided to marry her when she grew up. I can't help but wonder if I should consider this to be a case of pedophilia. Anyway, the fact remains that Ruskin was in love with a young girl. Ruskin wrote that soon after, the door to his living room opened, and Rose walked in, calmly looking at him with her dark blue eyes as she crossed the room. She gave him her hand, like a good puppy, and then stood back a bit. She was nearly 10 years old and neither tall nor short for her age. Her eyes were full and soft, like later. The profile of her lips was perfectly beautiful. When viewed frontally, they were slightly wider and firmer at the edges. The rest of Rose's facial features are similar to those usually found in fair and well-mannered Irish girls. Concerned parents of Rose Latouche wrote a letter to Effie Millais asking her opinion about the marriage between their daughter and John Ruskin and what kind of husband she would be. Effie responded brusquely and briefly, saying that he was a domineering and controlling man. The engagement between Rose and Ruskin was called off. In fact, Rose, as an adult, could legally decide whether or not to marry Ruskin herself. She made the condition that the wedding be incomplete, similar to the one she had with Effie, but Ruskin refused. And what does he want from a teenager anyway? Rose died at the age of 27 in a nursing home where her parents had put her. The young woman suffered from hysteria, anorexia, and religious mania, as well as other mental illnesses. It seems likely that her death affected John Ruskin greatly. He became interested in spiritualism, attempting to contact her spirit. Fortunately, Effie did not have to live with such a bizarre man for the rest of her life.